Hello and welcome to our Tongue Fu Book Club. Today is day 2. I am Sam Horn, the originator of the Tongue Fu series and the CEO of the Tongue Fu Training Institute. And our topic today is what to say and not to say when we have to say no or give bad news. And the quote from today is from me. And in the book we'll be talking about today, which is Tongue Fu at School, it says that when we tell people it's not our fault, they conclude we don't care. And many of us are having to give bad news these days. We're having to tell family members or students or our customers or employees bad news. We have to say things we wish we didn't. And our goal is how can we handle this with grace so that at least people know we care? We may not be able to change the circumstances. We sure can change how we communicate about those circumstances, and words matter and it matters. So today we're going to be sharing from Tongue Fu at School. And now one of our certified Tongue Fu trainers is actually Merrill Marshall Daniels, who was the CEO of the Academy of Motion, let's get it right here, of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Yes, these are the people who put on the Academy Awards. And I'll always remember I had an opportunity to speak at the California Governor's Conference for Women, and Merrill was the moderator of the panel that I was on. We had a chance to talk afterwards, and she asked what I was doing. And when I told her about Tongue Fu, she knew that this was needed and took a workshop and became certified in it. And she endorsed this book. Here's what she said. Sam Horn's storytelling style lends itself to television and to every visual medium looking to participate in transforming our culture of conflict to one of dialogue. Yep, that's what we're trying to do. There's a lot of conflict in our world right now. And the goal of Tongue Fu is to transform that into cooperation and connection. And so in these troubling times, how can we do that? Well, here's one of the ways. And I get to read from this book and hope you find it interesting and useful. And then, yes, we'll share a couple success stories. Yes, we have another of our Tongue Fu certified trainers who will be joining us today. And we will be juxtaposing words to lose and words to use so you know how to shift the conversation from one of resistance or resentment to respect and rapport. We start with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, "It is one of the most beautiful compensations of this life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself." I love that Ralph Waldo Emerson said years ago, decades ago, the intent of Tongue Fu is that when we try to help others with our language, we help ourselves. We reduce our stress. We reduce our misunderstandings and our time-consuming mistakes. And so here's one way to do that. The phrases sure as soon as and yes right after put us on the same side instead of pitting us side against side because they focus attention on how and when something can happen instead of why it can't. So we'll set up this chapter by asking yourself, please think of a situation right now where you have to tell someone no. Maybe you have to tell your kids that no, they're not going back to school in the fall. Maybe you have to tell your employees that no, you're not opening your doors anytime soon. Maybe you have to tell your customers that you're not able to ship those products because the manufacturing has gone south. So think of a situation where you have to tell someone no. Often when we say it's not my fault, or there's nothing I can do, or don't blame me, or there's no way I can change it, people conclude we're apathetic. We don't care. And our goal today is to focus on how we can be empathetic instead of apathetic. A special education teacher named Rosario told me that this simple concept turned around her classroom management. She said, "I have 8 hyperactive children in my class, and it seems like all they ever want to do is have recess and art. They ask 100 times a day, can we have recess now? Can we get our art supplies now? And I used to explain, well, no, we can't have recess because the bell hasn't rung. Or, we don't have art until last period. And every single time I told them no, it would set one off on a tantrum, and then the others would quickly follow. Your Tung Fu workshop helped me see that I was unknowingly and unnecessarily setting up an adversarial relationship. So after reading your book, the very next day, when the kids said, can we have recess? I'd say, yes, we can have recess as soon as the bell rings. And when they begged to have art, I'd say, yes, we can have art when the clock gets to 1 p.m. Or yes, we can get out our art supplies as soon as you clean up your desk. Now, think how often people ask for something and we tell them why it's not possible now, when it actually is possible later that day, or when they take responsibility for fulfilling one of their obligations. Why set up a needlessly negative interaction by pointing out why a request can't be granted and leaving it at that? Why not apply a little mental elbow grease and figure out how we can grant their request? This possibility thinking is a far better communication habit to develop, and it will pay off in more positive, productive interactions. So I hope you have your paper in front of you. Put your vertical line down the center. Over on the left, once again, are words to lose. Over on the right are words to use. Over on the left, these words to lose create conflict. Over on the right, these words to use create cooperation. So imagine someone says, can we get this meeting started? And over on the left, we say, no, we can't get it started because we're still waiting for some stragglers. Do you feel how that no, we can't because shuts the door in their face? Let's go over to the right. Yes, we can start the meeting as soon as 3 more people get here, so we get a quorum. And if they're not here in 5 minutes, we're going to start anyway. And thank you for being on time. So let's switch no, we can't because to yes, we can as soon after. All right. Can you tell me, for a student, what's going to be on the test tomorrow? Not now. You have to finish reading this chapter first. Do you see, once again, they make a request and we tell them why it can't be done now. Not now, because you have to do this first. Let's go over to the right. Yes, we can talk about what will be on the test tomorrow as soon as you finish this chapter. Now, who's responsible for getting what it is they want? They are, because instead of saying, no, we can't do it now, we're saying, yes, we can do it right after you finish this, complete this, turn this in, get approval for this. Over on the left, can I talk with Bob? Well, no, you can't. He's out sick today. Well, let's go over to the right. Yes, you can talk with Bob. He's out sick today. He said he'll be back in tomorrow. Would you like to leave a message for him or get back and call him yourself? Which do you prefer? Do you see how instead of saying no, which shuts the door on that interaction, when we say, yes, we can as soon as, or yes, we can right after, that it opens up the possibility and once again advances the conversation instead of anchoring it in an argument. Now, one of my favorite stories, and I tell this story and have been telling it for years because it resonates with so many people. There was a woman in one of my Tung Fu workshops, and I could just see the emotion playing over her face. And I said, what are you thinking? She said, Sam, I can't wait to get home tonight. And I said, why? She said, I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids under the age of 10. And it seems like all I ever do is tell them no. Can I play with my friends? No, you can't because you haven't done your homework. Can I watch TV? No, you can't because you haven't done your chores. And then she would often do what's called stacking, which is we don't just say one of these words to lose, we stack them all on top of each other. It's like, you know better than this. How many times do I have to tell you? When are you going to start listening to me? And off we go. Now, she was the one who said, Sam, I've been thinking about how I can shift this. Instead of saying, no, you can't play with your friends because you haven't done your homework, how could I change that? Sure, you can play with your friends as soon as you finish your homework. Go ahead and finish your math. Let me have a look at it. Then you can go out and shoot hoops. Instead of, no, you can't watch TV because you haven't done your chores. Yes, you can watch TV right after you finish your chores. Go ahead and take out the trash. Go ahead and clean up your room. Then you can turn on Simpsons or Discovery Channel. And she was the one who said, Sam, this isn't just semantics. This changes the whole dynamic of the relationship. Because when I tell them no, they see me as a big meanie, like I'm the one blocking them from what it is they want. When I say, yes, you can as soon as, or sure you can right after, who's responsible for getting what it is they want? Do you see the scope of Tongue Fu? It's not just wordplay. It's not just semantics. It really does help us get along. It helps us have more positive, productive, proactive relationships instead of anchoring them in these unnecessary conflicts. Now, we're about to have a hana ho. Now, any of you have lived in Hawaii know that hana ho means encore. If someone is doing the hula and does a wonderful job, everyone in the audience will say, hana ho, hana ho. And it means again, do it again. Well, we are having a guest again. And the reason is because Tweet Coleman, who gifted us with her stories and insights in our Someday is Not a Day in the Week book club, is also a certified Tongue Fu trainer. And Tweet is an aviation pioneer. She was one of the first women in the cockpit of a 747. She is also a USTA certified teaching pro and a wonderful 4-0 player. She is also an ambassador globally for the Rotary Club. And she has some wonderful stories to share about how we can choose words that help instead of hurt. Welcome, Tweet.
Good morning, Sam. Good morning. And good morning, listeners. A few years ago, I was in Nashville, Tennessee at the Gaylord Grand Opry Hotel and Convention Center. This is a large hotel, 3,000 guest rooms. In fact, they have an indoor train to take the guests from place to place. A big botanical garden, a rainbow of flowers. Well, I walked into my conference room and I said, congratulations. And they looked around and I said, please stand, everybody stand up and tell your neighbor, congratulations, glad you're here. So all 400 people stood up and they did that. And I walked up and I said, welcome to the Women in Aviation Annual Conference. Our session today is managing your bullies. And I say congratulations because many people have bullies, but they suffer in silence, as Sam said, S-I-S. They suffer in silence because they feel belittled. They feel too embarrassed to talk about their bullies. And in fact, some go to the degree of committing suicide regarding their bullies. So sad. But you're here today because you're proactive and you want to do something positive to change the situation. So congratulations. I had breakfast this morning with Suzanne, and Suzanne said that I could share her story. Suzanne is a supervisor for a fixed base operator in the Ronald Reagan Airport. And Suzanne said, you know, Tweet, I would be the director of the FBO if it wasn't for my bully boss. What can I do? And I said, well, let's explore that a bit. I said, in page 146 of the bully book, I said, Sam talks about choosing your battles. We really need to investigate the situation. For instance, let's talk about the background of your bully. What is he really like? Does he just target you as a bully or everybody in the department? Is it intentional? So think about the background of the situation. and then motivated. Do you think this person would be a motivated leader if you brought him aside and he talked to what he's actually doing to you? Do you think he would be motivated in that direction? I know that when we had the 4 kids at home, I would fly all day and then go home in the evening, and the kids would want to have help in their homework. They want to go to softball practice. I was torn and my voice would raise and I'd say, just a minute. My husband would pull me aside and he said, you know, Tweet, that sounds like bullying. And I said, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Really, I want to be the best mom I could. And so I said, yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate you telling me that. You know, sometimes we do need a little help in that area. Also, you want to think about the outcome. You know, you could win the battle in this situation, however, lose the war. So Suzanne and I explored this. I said, Sam talks about in page 150 of the book, things that it says here, basically 3 things you can do about it. So the first thing is that you can change the person. Right. How many of you are married? Enough said, right? We really can't change the situation unless some monumental thing happens to that individual. Next, we can change the person. Yeah, you can't really change the person. The situation you could change, and that's what we talked about with Suzanne. She could actually go to another fixed base operator at the Ronald Reagan Airport. And, you know, by exploring and talking with her, we found out that she'll never move up because it's really a family affair at that fixed base operator. They have 3 other family members and they're just waiting for the brother to graduate from college. And he's also going to be hired here. So Suzanne figured out just with questioning and investigating, she's probably never going to move up. So she said, I'm going to go back and put my paperwork in and look for another job and climb that ladder. And I said, good for you. But the most important, you can change yourself. You know, when you change yourself, you change the lens in your eyes, you refocus the whole situation. You get educated. Boy, you feel more secure about the situation because you know what's going on. You know the games that people play. And so for lasting productivity, really changing yourself really works. Well, I only have 5 minutes. I wish I had 5 hours, Sam, but I'd like to leave you with this quote. It's from Mr. Tom Gaskin. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. Thank you.
You know, Tweet, I always love your wisdom because you've been there, run this. And I know that you brought Tung Fu into the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Can you take us into one of those workshops? What was a question that you frequently heard? Or what was a tip that you would share and you would get a lot of response about how helpful it was? So let's put us in one of your FAA workshops, please.
Okay, great. Yes. You know, the thing that Suzanne said, the biggest bully, overall, like 70, 80% of the biggest bully that I found that people would talk about is the person they have to report to. And generally it was a man, but you know, there are a lot of women now in management positions, but it would be that one person that would be a stumbling block. And so when we really sat down and started asking questions of the participant in the situation, and we would say, take yourself out of the situation and think of somebody else. And it's easier for them to look at a problem area whenever they do that. And we find that whenever they really take the time to investigate and when they think about the words that they say and how they respond, they get a different interpretation of the whole situation. So words to use and words to lose is so powerful. In fact, I have that little index card next to my telephone in the other room. So that's really good. Then, you know, government is different. Let's face it, government is different. I think it's a harder nut to crack, as they say. However, you know, it can be done, and people that are open-minded and people that would go to a conference and listen to a Tung Fu presentation, they're the best group to work with.
You know, thank you so much, Tweet. We're going to share your information once again. And by the way, I really like your background there, Tweet. Well done.
I have my friend behind me.
And let's go there for a moment, is that Lori Bachman was our first guest expert and Tweet is our second. And it is one of the joys of my life that I have colleagues. Tweet and I have known each other for 30 years, and that Tung Fu is an evergreen, and is it needed more now than ever. It is so many organizations are getting in touch and saying, please, we need help. We need help. How can we talk with civility and diplomacy, even when other people aren't? How can we have these hard conversations? And how can we set the example of treating people with respect so more people are motivated to respond in kind? So thank you, Tweet. And let's go right into some other scenarios, because now if I could read your mind, you may be thinking, Sam, all right, I have on the left, no, you can't because, yes, you can as soon as, or no, we can't because we can right after. What if there is no right after? What if there is no as soon as? What if? All right, well, let's talk about a situation, and then we're going to add some more options on the left and right so that you can shift the conversation when you have to give bad news. Is that my son, Tom, is married to Patty, and her sister is a principal. We had a family call last week. And Becky said, it feels like all I ever do is tell people there's nothing I can do. It's like there's no way I can tell you when schools are going to reopen. And no, we're not going to have band, and we're not going to have sports, and we're not going to have clubs. And she said, they're angry at me. And I can understand it. It's just that it's not my fault. There's nothing I can do. So Becky and I had a conversation about in person when she's talking with a teacher or a student or a parent, and online in their communications on their website, how important it is to change our language, because don't blame me, it's not my fault, there's nothing I can do, there's no way I can change this, it's not my decision, all come across as if we're shrugging people off. They feel that we're not listening, that we don't understand how awful this is for them, and they get louder and angrier in an effort to make us care. So back to your notes. Here are some of the responses we came up with so we can be proactive. John F. Kennedy said, our task is not to fix the blame for the past. It's to fix the course for the future. See, most of these words on the left, like we've talked about, but and should and so forth, they focus on the past and what we can't do. We want to move over here to focus on the future and what we can do now and from now on and in the future, so that we're proactive instead of passive. So instead of saying there's nothing I can do, we talked about there's something we can do. Is that we have scheduled a virtual meeting that is open to all teachers, all parents, and all students to talk about how we're switching to virtual. Instead of nothing I can do, end of story, there's something we can do. All right, over on the left, there's no way I can change this. There's no way I could change this. Over on the right, put, I wish I could change this. Do you feel the difference? I wish I could change this. Instead of saying, it's not my fault, just eliminate whose fault it is and say, we will open as soon as it's approved. We will open as soon as it's approved, or we will do this as soon as we get these supplies. We will do this as soon as it's green lighted, as soon as we get the funding. Instead of saying, don't blame me, over on the left, don't blame me, over on the right, put, I know how much you were looking forward to this. So was I. I know how much you were counting on this. So was I. Do you see the switch from apathy to empathy? Instead of don't blame me, I know how much you were looking forward to this, counting on this. So was I. And one more, instead of this is out of my control, or I'm not the decision maker, over on the left. This is not my decision. It's out of my control. Once again, helpless, hopeless. people take their frustration out on us. Over on the right, I can only imagine how frustrating or devastating this is. And then move into, and let's get resourceful, or let's get creative and figure out how we can make the most of these circumstances. So over on the left, it's not my decision, out of my control. Over on the right, I can only imagine how frustrating this is, or how devastating this is. And then bridge into how we can pull together instead of be pulled apart, and how we can be proactive. And as John F. Kennedy said, fix the course for the future by adapting, by pivoting, by getting creative, by getting resourceful. Great. I have time for 2 quick stories that show the importance of this. Once again, I've said this before. I love this topic because I have so many success stories from people who have emailed me afterwards, who have come up to me in the halls after a program and said how it is going to change something. And they had said something they wish they hadn't, and now they have a better way. So a woman came up and she said, also, I can't wait until I get home tonight. And I said, why? She said, my daughter came home last night from school. I was in the kitchen fixing dinner. She grabs me around the waist. She twirls me around. She says, Mom, I got it. I got it. And I said, what? She said, I got the lead in the high school play. Now, she'd been in musical theater since the time she was in 10, community theater, high school theater, and now she was going to have the lead in the high school play. She was going to play Annie. So she said, get out your calendar, put, opening night. I want you there in the front row. And this woman said, with a feeling of dread, I got out my phone. I looked at my calendar. I said, honey, I can't be there. I've got a conference out of town. I'm leaving on Thursday. I'm not even coming back until Monday night. And her daughter's face just fell. She said, Mom, you travel all the time. You miss so many of my events. Can't you make an exception this once? And this woman said she just stayed over there in the left-hand column. Honey, there's no way I can back out of this. This has been a commitment for months. Mom, isn't there someone else who can take your place? Honey, there's nobody who knows the system the way I do. And then out came the shoulds. You should have let me know earlier that this was an option, so I could have said, oh boy. She said, my daughter left the room in tears. She said, when I get home tonight, I'm going to sit down with my daughter and I'm going to tell her, I am so proud of you. And I wish I could be there in the front row because I would love to see you do this. And there's something we can do. Can you ask a friend to videotape that play so that when I get home on Sunday night or Monday night, we can sit down on the couch together and you can talk me through your performance? In the real world, things go wrong. We don't have a magic wand that we can wave that can just make those problems go away or that can instantly solve them. So part of Tung Fu is not being a Pollyanna. It's dealing with really challenging circumstances and understanding sometimes we cannot change those circumstances. We can change how we communicate about them. So at least people know we care. One more example is that we've talked about certifying people in Tung Fu, and we had a Tung Fu instructor in Hawaii whose brother was one of her best friends. They'd always been very close, and he had been ignoring his health, and he really started having some health challenges, and he finally went in for some comprehensive test. And the doctor called him and said, we have the results of your test. He said, please come in tomorrow and bring a family member with you. And he knew that wasn't good news. So he asked Gwen to go with him. And when they walked in the doctor's office, he had all the charts in front of him on the desk, and he just kept his head down. He did not even look up. And he said, it's stage 4 cancer. We caught it too late. There's nothing we can do. And she just she said, I wanted to reach across the table. I wanted to say, couldn't you at least say there's something we can do? Here is the phone number of a support group with other people who are dealing with these kind of diagnoses, and people find it encouraging to be able to talk about it and know that this person understands. Couldn't you at least say, I wish there were more we can do? If you're in a situation right now where you have to tell a loved one, you have to tell a customer, an employee, something that they don't want to hear and you don't want to say, at least can you turn there's nothing into there's something? No way I can change it to I wish I can change it. Not my fault. To I hope things get better. Let's get proactive so that at least people know you care and so that you're delivering the news with compassion. My name is Sam Horn. In our next session, we're going to be going back into some words to lose and words to use, in particular, why the word problem is a problem. I'm Sam Horn. Look forward to seeing you in day 3 of our Tongue Fu Book Club series.